A sloppy sun. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. My daughter draws a sloppy sun. Like a melting popsicle. In the hands of two friends. Who have too much to talk about. In a warm neighborhood. And I sit next to her, draw a sloppier one. That seems more like a floating flower. Against the aqua sky. And I draw a dozen more. And I don't tell her. The sun is always round. I don't tell her. There is always only one. Because as I look outside the window, the grass is too wild, crisscrossing. Free to move whichever way it wishes. And maybe someday, when the world gets too cold, and our fingers too stiff, and as we sit sipping our teas, or shuffling in our beds, we see the rising of not one, but many suns, and then it gets too bright and mellow. And maybe that very instance, she'll look at her drawings, sticking to the kitchen fridge, and say, "Ma, we already saw it coming." Save a Beaming Yellow. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. Today in the clinic, I sit by the window. The sky is heavy. And so it sheds a few tears. The sunflowers on my lap are fresh, oozing with life. I kneel down to smell a few, and it occurs to me, I want to save them, for as long as they can be saved. The boy on the corner couch gets up, fills a vase with tap water. He sits in front of me and holds it firm, and I place the flowers in it. We sit silently gazing down at them, and I think to myself, how strangely this world works. How mine is on a wheelchair, with medicines on my bedside table, having to stop midway between my sentences, often not feeling the grass beneath my feet, catching my breath every now and then, and yet somehow, deep down, we're all standing at the edges of a huge spider web, listening to each other, knowing what the other needs, even if it's a water-filled vase, to save a beaming yellow.
A Room in This Universe. Presented by Voices of Friedreich's Ataxia. I remember that morning, on the way back from the doctor. My medical history. A neuromuscular exam. How that very morning, half a cup of coffee fell on my left arm, and I could feel none of the heat, the X-rays of my head, my spine and chest, and knowing that among all the dreams and rainbows gushing through my veins, something else is there too. A frataxin gene. And I remember how long that car ride was. How I entered my own home. A stranger, unaware of where my room stood. But now I witness among all that flow through me. A revelation swims too, patting me gently on the back. whispering, "Stay. Fight. You've been given a room in this universe. Go to sleep in it. Wake up in it." The first car ride back home may have been terrifying, never-ending, but this life is too precious. And something precious that passes in a blink of an eye should be held on too tight and never give up. Strawberries and Sunsets. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. Last evening, I took my little brother to therapy. Something I never saw myself doing alone on my own. We switched him to a wheelchair. We were told how to cope with fatigue, how to adapt to this new change. For the first time, I witnessed electronic devices with large buttons that he could easily press, weighted cutlery he could easily hold, lidded cups he could easily drink from. It felt drastic, hurried too soon. Somewhere inside, I could see a tornado approaching from far away, but all I did was gaze at the ticking clock, grab my purse, and push the wheelchair out in the open fields of the front side park to sit beside him with a bowl of fresh strawberries to watch a setting sun, humming to his favorite song all the way back home. And I knew that instance this would be something I would want to do with him every day till the rest of my days here. And I knew that instance, this part of my day, this small, unnamed, a magnificent part of my day, would be my favorite. No matter what happens, before it, or after. Unapologetically. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. Some nights, when it's windy, and everyone departs to their rooms, to dive into their dreamlands, and when the curtain dances slowly, to reveal a moon wide awake, I recall a Chinese legend, where an emperor asks a painter to paint a landscape so splendid that the emperor can enter it. But the painter ends up not doing a good job, and the emperor decides for his assassination. But because it was his painting, the painter enters it, vanishes, saves himself, and I think we all live in our heads most of our lives, and in the garden of our souls, some flowers define us, just like FA defines me. And sitting here, in the quiet of the night, I make my own painting, my very own escape. There's a full moon, a basket of bananas on the dinner table, A line of ants besides the window, busy stocking food for winters. And the universe, outside, and within me, looks like a beautiful place to be alive in, to wake up another day in, to carry my grief and troubles, to carry my joy and hope, to leave a note beside the fireplace in my heart, saying to never stop fighting, to exist, and exist unapologetically. Memories. Presented by Voices of Friedreich's Ataxia. Some years back, I could hear the gardener watering the marigolds, the mailman's bicycle bells, the newspaper boy screaming down the streets, the children playing hopscotch till their feet give up on them. And I think that's exactly why God made memories. Sweet honey-drenched ones, where any day ahead, if this insidious deafness overtakes me, where any day I am unable to make sense of all being spoken, I still know what the mailman sounded like, what cheerful children and rustling wind, and the man on the corner playing violin sounded like. And maybe that's the tiny gem-like part of what made God decide to make memories a part of this loud world. DYSARTHRIA. Presented by Voices of Friedreich's Ataxia. Today I learned the name given to what Ma's going through, one term collecting all movement disorders of controlling speech, and in the little amount of speech therapy I take my mother to, I realize how necessary it is to understand a human's face, how much reliant we are on a person's words, and words alone, when their face could be a plethora of emotions one could never decode. And now when I sit on the front porch swing with Ma on the side couch sipping her tea, I hear the guard say good morning to her as she smiles and nods her head, and what I see is how this morning is nothing but good for him, for he carries a river of tears in his swollen eyes. If you stand up and gaze, by walking a little closer, Marshmellow. Presented by Voices of Friedreich's Ataxia. I think it was that spring evening, a month ago, when a plate of mango tart, carefully broken apart in tiny pieces for me, fell from my hands and crashed on the floor, followed by a moment of sheer quietness, that was then broken by the maid rushing in. Or was it that autumn night, when all my friends left, and I remained seated on the dinner table, crammed with forks and knives, and when my will and might wasn't enough for me to move my wheelchair towards my room, as slumber began seizing me, and I found myself waking up with the sun in the same lounge. Or maybe it was the evening. All the elders took their beaming children to the Central Park, where they took rides and ran, and stopped not for a minute. And the kid in me sat somewhere in the corner of my marshmallow heart, dreaming of swings he wouldn't take, grasses he wouldn't run on, endlessly, unstoppably, unquestionably. But I think it doesn't matters what exact time or place it was, when I realized that I am not an audience of this great stage we call the world, but in fact, I am a player of a character that was meant only for me to be played. Someone who sees and observes, and decides never to give up the fight, to search for happiness, even in the most unhappy circumstances, to be someone who someone looks at and decides, this is exactly the way I won't give up. This is exactly the way I won't let FA get the better of me. Let cancer get the better of me. Let dementia get better of me. Let anything get better of me. For I am so much bigger than that. From the city of Athens. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. A friend calls me from the city of Athens, a place I had always wanted to go. He said the sunrise there reminded him of me, and the tall glasses filled with orange juice didn't tasted like they used to back in our front garden. And he says he wishes he could put me in my wheelchair, in his suitcase, and carry me to Athens, a place I had always wanted to go. And he says he wishes he could see this world through my eyes, and so could everyone else. For if they did, they would wake up early to feed the sparrows. They would not let FA or anything else chain them. They would sing to their friends. Elvises can't help falling in love. They would fight and sleep and wake up only to fight again. They would fiercely be themselves. Nothing more, nothing less. A letter of apology. Presented by Voices of Freidreich's Ataxia. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I want to wake up and write myself a letter of apology for all the times I wanted to stop being, for all the times I stopped saying My body as my only home. And then maybe somewhere in between, I will make a promise that I've been unable to before. That was there, on the tip of my tongue. But I was too afraid to utter it. Maybe a promise to never be homeless again. To walk in myself. To open the windows every morning. And let fresh air in. To feed the birds bread. And put on the radio. To dust off the kitchen shelves. To sit on the porch. And keep drinking tea. Till my heart's content. Till my soul turns pink. And finally confesses how it yearned for this all along.